What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bro History, your favorite podcast on geopolitics, history, all that stuff. Today, Danny Abdul-Jabbar is on the line again through the magic of the internet. What's going on, brother?
Chilling, man. As per usual. How about you?
Well, my fucking notes won't load, so there's a problem. And
Fuck it, we're doing it live.
Without this very carefully scripted show, I can't go on because everything I say is part of a script. Every single thing. And when my notes don't appear on screen, then people die.
Yeah.
People will feel my wrath. Well, I got some good news. So I finally saw, for frequent listeners, you all know about my journey to find the Mandarin duck that's been in Central Park.
Beautiful. A dazzling Mandarin duck has become the hottest attraction in New York City, drawing a crowd as if it were a celebrity sighting. Even paparazzi snapping away with their telephoto lenses.
Oh my God, you found him?
I did. The Mandarin duck, just for people who don't know, is a duck that is its beauties surpass only by its mystery. And a Mandarin duck appeared in Central Park. And Mandarin ducks are not native to North America. They're only native to East Asia. So they're in Japan and China and Korea. And one appeared magically in the oasis in the center of Manhattan called Central Park. No one knew what happened. And this duck is stunning. I'll tell you that. It's a very, very stunning duck. It's very majestic looking. I'm going to throw up. I took some pictures of it that I'll show.
Took a pic for the gram.
Yeah. That I'll show on the video cast right now. And what was really interesting about this Mandarin duck is that all these people were there. So there was people taking pictures. There was people videotaping this duck. And they were absolutely thrilled to see it, as I was as well. And every single time the duck got closer to this group of people, everyone would be like, shh, shh, be silent. It's getting closer. Don't scare it away. So there was just so much focus and so much excitement brought by this duck. And I'm going to add again, this duck is a beautiful duck. What's interesting is that a new duck showed up in Central Park, a blue heron.
Oh.
And apparently this blue heron has been stealing the thunder from the Mandarin duck. So we'll see if there's a rivalry between these two ducks, like a Zoolander type battle between Hansel and Zoolander. But the reason why I bring this
up, Team Mandarin.
Hashtags Team Mandarin. The reason why I bring this up, because I think this duck story, this Mandarin duck story, it's global. It's a global phenom. It's been all over the news. I think it's more important, more interesting news than the Mueller investigation.
How did I know you were going to say that?
For real.
So tell us.
I just never we have never once talked about the Mueller investigation on this show.
No.
Maybe once in passing, but we've never done an episode on the Mueller investigation. We've never talked about Russia probe or Russia Gate. We've never talked about any of this at all. And the reason why I never wanted to talk about it is because I knew it was bullshit from the beginning. And I never even thought of it as something that was closely legitimate in any type of level. I just thought this is just a way to fuck with the sitting president. This is something that was kind of orchestrated by the FBI because they don't like Trump. And I'm not a big Trump supporter. I'm not a big Trump supporter at all. Okay. But even I was turned off and I was pushed towards Trump because I thought the investigation was just so bullshit. But it didn't interest me because I knew if anything, I thought that they were going to find, and this is what actually did happen, is they found other shady deals that were going on between the different parties because you're just digging and digging and digging, and they're politicians and businessmen. So of course you're going to find some corrupt, shady shit.
Right.
That's what I thought was going to happen. I'm surprised I didn't find something that was bigger with Trump that was not related to Russia. But you have these two sides, and I'm just like, there's the right right now. Well, I'll start off with the left. The left is like, well, there's still a chance that there could be an obstruction of justice. Oh,
Did you see Rachel Maddow crying on TV?
They're trying to like justify their suspicion. And then you have the right who's like, told ya, I knew it was fake. I knew it was fake. I knew it was all bullshit. I'm like, dude, yeah, I knew Bigfoot didn't exist either.
Well, the thing is, like, I've never talked about this on the show because, frankly, I don't like to be like a left-wing conspiracy peddling nut, I thought that there definitely could have been some collusion, but, like, I'm not going to start talking about it before there's evidence for it, It's not news until then, Now, with that being said, you're absolutely right. They did find a bunch of random fucked up shit that people should actually absolutely follow through with. And I think, it's echo of, of the Bill Clinton impeachment, Kenneth Starr, the independent counsel there, wrote like a 400 plus page document on him, which eventually brought up the impeachment proceedings. But initially there was like some other unrelated scandal. And then they just ended up catching him, lying to the American people and lying to Congress about Monica Lewinsky. Right. So like, well, I'll have to look more into it, but evidently they didn't find any collusion there. It wasn't a case about collusion in the first place. I think it was like real estate or property or some shit like that. But they didn't find the initial thing that they were looking for, but they did find, that he was basically sleeping with Monica Lewinsky, and then he lied about it, and then that's what started the impeachment trial. So like, this is part of the course for politics, like it's fairly normal for, independent counsels to find a bunch of random other unrelated crimes, but crimes nevertheless. So, I think what's super interesting about it is that the left keeps hanging on to, the one line that, there was no obstruction of justice, but it doesn't exonerate him completely. And I think it's pretty legitimate, in my opinion, to be like, all right, well, that's a weird quote to say. Like, what do you mean by that? Can we please see what you mean? So I think it's totally fair for, all Americans to want to be able to read it, to want to know what the hell did Mueller mean by that. I mean, he spent the last 22 months and, millions of dollars doing this shit. For us not to be able to see it is kind of a cock tease, and if there was truly nothing, then like, everybody should be on board with it. I mean, the president said it himself. He's like, yeah, go ahead, show everybody. So I said, let's take a look. I want to see what's in it. Could be interesting, or it could be total bullshit. Like either way, just put it out. Like what's the big deal? Stop being a tease about it.
Do you know the story about the book of the birth of the Book of Mormon?
Oh yeah, Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith. You know how he read like the new passages. Yeah. The new new passages of the Bible.
He put the gold plates of Nephite inside of a hat and stuck his face inside of it. And then I think somebody tried to call him out on it and was like, oh, they stole the book. And they were like, hey, just make another one. And then he was like, no. God is mad at me now. And I got to write a brand new book. It's going to be different. So that was pretty funny.
I think we're looking at a situation like that they're embarrassed to show it in public because it's going to not indict Donald Trump whatsoever.
Wait, don't roll off of that.
On Russia collusion.
On Russia? I mean, fuck the Russia collusion. I don't think anybody, let's be real.
Rachel Maddow believed it.
Oh, well, she's a person unto herself.
All of CNN believed it. All of MSNBC believed it.
I mean, all of the mainstream media believes a lot of random bullshit. So like, I don't take that very seriously. That's why I never talk about it on the show. Like I thought it was an interesting thing, like it's like talking about birtherism or trutherism and shit like that. Like I don't want to talk about shit like that unless there's actual evidence for us to talk about, it's just, I don't want to make a determination on until I can see it. And evidently Mueller wrote a report and nobody gets to see it. And I'm like, all right, well that kind of sucks. I want to see what's in it. Everybody wants to see what's in it. Let's just read it. And if it's nothing, it's nothing. And if it's something, it's let's act on the something. I think it's a totally reasonable position to have. I don't know. I don't understand why Mr. McConnell blocked the shit, even though 420 or something like that votes in House, like completely unanimous, was just like, yeah, let's take a look. That was a little weird.
Yeah, because I think it would indict the FBI most likely. I don't know. I think it would probably indict the FBI.
Cool.
That's why they don't want to show it.
That's fine. That's fine. Totally fine. It's like, let's read it. Let's get it out in the open. If there's people that need to get in trouble, then they get in trouble. Like that's if you're not trying to, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. You know what I mean? Like it's just if they found some damning shit, put it out there. That's all I gotta say. Let's deal with it.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that in our government. What I found most interesting, though, like through this entire process, and I don't really know that the details of the Mueller investigation because I wasn't following it. The details I was getting, they were all from just like certain podcasts that I listened to, and I never really examined it for myself just because I took a holistic view at the situation, and I said, well, Trump's policy isn't very pro-Russia. He put sanctions on them. He threw missiles into Syria, even though they were symbolic more so. But he doesn't seem like.
I mean, he gave him a heads up before he threw missiles into Syria, so no harm, no foul there.
Still, like he didn't come in with like a foreign policy that shook the status quo in reality. So I don't understand how he was just looking at his policy decisions. I just didn't understand how this was a part of, he was a puppet of Putin per se. But what I found really interesting about the entire 2-year process of this is the links, the relationships that MSNBC, the former left-wing network, you're now the right-wing network, MSNBC went through a full makeup. Maybe they're like kind of like this weird new age of corporate liberalism. MSNBC, they really kind of marketed their self as that, like what your liberal uncle likes. Your liberal uncle that tells you about Woodstock, it's the channel for him. He's the one who really digs Rachel Maddow's haircut. What I found interesting were the devious characters they were spreading legitimacy on.
Like who?
Well, I'll just start with my arch nemesis. Like we all have our people that we just really dislike, and I'll start with John Brennan.
Okay.
John Brennan is the worst of the worst. Before he was the senior intelligence analyst for MSNBC, he was a director of the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was president, he would, as Trump said, he would be in jail for multiple reasons of treason. And I'd have a full investigation on John for Mr. Brennan, for all the misconduct that he was associated with while he was in the CIA. He was probably, I mean, there's plenty of bad guys who weaseled their way into high position jobs in the giant U.S. bureaucracy, but John Brennan has to be a red dot, like just one of the worst ones out of any of them. Are you familiar with John Brennan?
Unfortunately, he's a troubling man.
He's just a very, very, very troubling man. And I just found it really, really weird. I didn't find it weird, but I just found it kind of gross to see his Uncle Fester looking head on TV all the time. He looks like the Goomba from Mario Brothers. He's just a very gross, off-putting man. Another thing he looks like is a orc from
Lord of the Rings,
World of Warcraft. He just looks like a monster. He looks like a monster. He looks like he probably smells like onions. He has like this really weird North Atlantic accent that he is just artificial.
I think I get it, dude.
When he was on Bill Maher and he was talking about Bill Maher and he was talking about Rand Paul. I was like, Rand Paul says all these things about me, but he knows not what he speaks.
Yeah. Well, it seems as though Rand Paul was the one who put this idea in Donald Trump's head. And
dead to me, Rand Paul.
Yeah, well, Rand Paul has never served on the Intelligence Committee. He knows not of which he speaks, but yet he has this impression.
Like, I was just like, ew. And of course, Bill Maher was watching it and was like, oh, you're like Bill Maher used to be a huge critic of the neocons in the Bush administration, and he's embracing John Brennan. What world do we live in? And I have a letter up that I wanted to read because I just found it really, really interesting. Mm-hmm. This is from. Yeah, so it's from the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. And the subject line is support for Brennan far from unanimous. Excuse me.
Unanimous.
I don't pronounce words very good, as you guys probably know. But basically, it was a letter written by people who are in the intelligence community saying what a scumbag he is. And it's ridiculous that, he has all these. He's infiltrated different media positions and how he's playing party politics. I'm going to read you the parts that I find really, really juicy. So I'll have the description of this thing in the podcast so you guys can read the entire thing. But here are the key takeaways. So Mr. Brennan's own record is clearly tarnished. When he was chief of station in Saudi Arabia prior to and after the bombing of Khobar Towers in June of 1996, rather than uphold the integrity of existing intelligence, he went along with the decision to avoid creating problems with the Saudis. After the attack, which was carried out by Saudi elements linked to bin Laden and al-Qaeda, Brennan helped push the memo that the culprits were Iran and Hezbollah.
All right, so like misattributing the action from Saudi-linked al-Qaeda to Iran and Hezbollah because it's politically expedient?
I guess so. And for those who don't know, the Khobar Towers was a housing complex used for coalition forces involved in Operation Southern Watch. Basically, they were in Saudi to ensure Iraqi compliance after Desert Storm. And a truck bomb detonated inside the complex. And this was carried out by al-Qaeda.
How do we know it was al-Qaeda, though? Just out of curiosity. If John Brennan is saying it was Hezbollah and Iran, how do we know?
Everyone else from the CIA said it was al-Qaeda. It was just, it was from intelligence documents. Like it was al-Qaeda. John Brennan, and that's when bin Laden started getting really active and around that time in the 90s. John Brennan blamed Iran and Hezbollah for the attacks, even though it was clear that it was done by elements linked to bin Laden. What I think about this, like what I always think, and this is what Scott Horton says as well. He said it to me. And he said that, well, maybe if the intelligence wasn't faulty, then maybe we would have been more prepared for 9/11.
Okay.
Maybe if we had this intelligence out there, if we understood how big of a threat al-Qaeda was, then maybe we could have all avoided this. But instead, he blamed Iran and Hezbollah. And Iran and Hezbollah, they've never attacked the United States. Ever. So it goes on. As the head of the Terrorist Threat Interrogation Center in 2003, Mr. Brennan failed to give the State Department complete statistics for terrorist attacks. The initial publication of Patterns of Global Terrorism in April 2004 touted a decline in terrorist attacks in 2003 as vindication of the Bush administration's policies. The publication later had to be recalled and revised when it was discovered that the CIA had left out a month and a half of data. John Brennan was in charge of that process instead of receiving a
reprimand.
However, he ended up being promoted. So he cooked the books to make it seem that Bush administration policies were leading to a decline in terrorist activity.
Sounds
So
like par for the course.
let me go on. So Mr. Brennan had assumed the role of passive spectator in building the fraudulent case to justify the 2003 invasion of Iraq. He has claimed only vague awareness of the CIA's so-called enhanced interrogation program. Physical records tell a different story. Brennan was CC'd on a minimum of 50 memos dealing with waterboarding and other torture techniques. Senator Saxby Chambliss noted that Brennan's boss, A.B. Buzzy Krongard, told the Wall Street Journal that Mr. Brennan had a role in setting the parameters of the program and helping to seek Justice Department approval for the technique. So not only did he lie about having vague awareness of the CIA's torture program, he was actively endorsing it and pushing it.
Yeah, that's fucked up. That's really fucked up.
Goes on. This letter is really juicy. I would encourage everyone to read the entire thing so you can just there's more context to it, but I don't want to spend the entire show reading a letter. So Mr. Brennan also attempted to cover up the truth about the CIA torture. Senator Mark Udell denounced his actions in a floor speech on December 10th, 2014, the day after the Senate Intelligence Committee published the executive summary of the conclusions of its 4-year investigation of CIA torture based on original CIA documents. The investigation not only revealed almost unbelievable heinous practices, but also demonstrated that senior CIA officials were untruthful in claiming that enhanced techniques produce actionable intelligence that could not have been obtained by traditional interrogation practices. With strong support from President Obama, Brennan, who was the CIA director, aggressively fought publication of the Senate report. So, I don't know. I just want to kind of talk about never served in the military. Never served in the CIA. I've never had the pleasure of torturing somebody in my life. So unfortunately, I don't have firsthand experience, and I don't have that insider information about torturing people that would get you all wet. But there's been so many reports about how torture is not effective at all that I can't help. Yeah. I can't help to believe that it's complete bullshit. Do you hear people in the background?
Slightly, but I can talk right now for you. This way, you can mute yourself for a minute. I mean, I've read reports about how people who are tortured often just say anything so that the torture can stop. So they'll give, they'll basically give you evidence that you're looking for, especially if the lines of questioning are leading. So there's definitely a case to be made. It's like if you know something, you're probably gonna say it, and if you don't know something, you're probably gonna say anything just so that the torture could stop. So it's like super inconsistent. It's definitely not an effective tool for getting good intel. And I think that's been the consensus for a number of years now. But to hear that Brennan, was covering it up and probably, more than just covering up or gunning for it, that's a little bit fucked up.
It's like the show 24, I think, did a big number on people's brains because 24 came out. It was a creation to satisfy the need to see terrorists tortured and murdered. You know what I mean? With a little bit of suspense. But in reality, do terrorists use time bombs? Is there ever a situation where you're going to be torturing somebody and it's that acute act is going to prevent an attack that's going to happen 60 minutes from then? Where are the codes? Where are the codes? Do you imagine that situation playing out at all? Does that make any sense to you? Do you think there's ever been a CIA guy torturing some 19-year-old Taliban? Where are the codes? Where are they? Where are the? Where's the wire? Where's the wire? Can you imagine that? I don't know. Play that out in your head. Does that make any sense? Is there ever have any terrorists or any terrorist group? And if I'm wrong about this, please let me know because I will eat my own words. But has there ever been a bomb a time bomb in a terrorist attack in the United States or in the Middle East where coalition forces were located? Like, has there ever been like a bunch of soldiers, they pulled a blanket off a desk, and all of a sudden they see a ticking time bomb with a digital clock going down, like, oh no, and then they have to grab some insurgent, go tell me how do I'm detonating this, how do I do it, we're gonna have to waterboard them. Like, does that make any fucking sense whatsoever? Does that make any sense?
I mean, no. But since we're pontificating here, if there were such a situation, we probably would never know about it. You know, that seems like
right. I don't think that ever played off once. I just don't think that ever played out once where there was a time where there was a ticking time bomb, or if a jihadist terrorist ever used a ticking time bomb. That's another question.
I don't think that's not in their style, in my opinion. I don't think that they do time-released bombs.
A time-released bomb on the George Washington Bridge is going to go off in 15 minutes. We gotta fucking let's get a stretcher and a glass of water. Let's get this guy.
I mean, you're putting me in a bit of a spot because, like, obviously, I don't want to, argue in favor of torture, like, at all. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that they were using torture as a method to, like, stop some imminent threat. I think they were just using torture for the
fun.
No, not for not for fun, to gain intelligence. And I think at least in the beginning, they thought that it would be an effective way to get intelligence on future things, maybe not imminent stuff, but like the locations of cells, the plans that they might be doing. And then clearly with all the reports that have come out and all the studies about it, it was just an ineffective way of getting information. The fact that they continued to do it is extremely troubling. But again, I just want to make absolutely clear, I can't believe that I'm even uttering any words in in defense of torture, because like it's terrible. But yeah, I don't ever think that there was any like imminent threats like a ticking time bomb or anything else like that that would even come close to warranting just the human rights abuses that went on post 9/11 to gain intelligence. I don't know.
It's so funny because like right now in Guantanamo Bay, there's people who are in Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
Obama said that he was going to
Gitmo.
Yeah. So there's people in Guantanamo Bay who basically were just kidnapped, thrown into jail. And we have no like they've never been tried. There's no trial of them. They're not guilty of anything technically. Like, yeah, a lot of them are really bad guys. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But now we're in a situation where it's like, well, if they weren't terrorists before, then they're definitely terrorists now.
We're just training them to how to be
they're
one.
Definitely terrorists now. So we better not let them go. Yeah, but the whole thing is like, yeah, like you said it before, there's like no, if you're being tortured, if you're being waterboarded, if your fingers are being cut off, if you're in one of those loud rooms and they just keep playing,
like sleep deprivation and shit like that. Yeah, that's fucked up, dude. It's really fucked up.
All those methods of torture, and I'm not even sure exactly what methods that we use. I know waterboarding is a big one, and a lot of people
sleep deprivation was a big one too, like just keeping people awake for several hours, or like isolation, solitary confinement, like those are all par for the course. But many of those things are recognized as like, literally torture, like human rights abuses. So
yeah, and I'm sure they do.
Like they do it in Cuba on purpose because it's like off U.S. soil, so they can't like, it's like the fucking loophole. It's like, oh, we're not in the United States right now. We can do whatever the fuck that we want. We can bend or break rules, like whatever. I don't know. It's fucked up, dude.
Eat this muffin that I just shit in.
God. Or the sexual abuse that goes on there. I've read some unverified accounts of of a lot of, sexual shit. Like, what was it? I was like, this is so funny, but like the Harold and Kumar, I think it was the second one, and they end up in Gitmo, and they're like, the terrorists that were in Gitmo were like, "Are you ready for the cock meat sandwich?"
Really? I never saw that.
That shit was hilarious. Hilarious, but also fucked up because I don't doubt that some shit went down. Yeah.
Well, dude, it's like any prison, every prison, there's going to be rape. It just whenever
we're talking about like a lot of the prison rapes that happen are like prisoner on prisoner, but this is like captor on prisoner. It's like a whole other level of fucked up. Not to say that rape in all cases is fucked up, but it's like particularly heinous when you have no power and you're subjected to this, and you don't know if you're gonna die or not. You're definitely not gonna get a trial or anything like that.
It's kind of funny that we're having this conversation because one of the first ideas I've ever had for this podcast was I was actually in the gym, and I was just talking to some of the guys I lift with, and we were just fucking around, and we were talking about we just got into the conversation of torture, and we were talking about the worst forms of torture in the world, and or that in human history, and there's some pretty fucked up ways to torture people throughout history. The worst, there's so many, as far as the bone rack where they
pull you, like the flayed man position, basically, like Ramsey Bolton style, and they just pull on your arms and legs and shit. Yeah.
Dan Carlin did an entire podcast on this subject for 4 hours long. He just talked about the different torture methods throughout history, and it was, I don't understand how he was able to sit down and do that. He has Dan Carlin has one episode, and it's a different episode. I think it's on the Prophets of Doom, and he's talking about he's like, it's weird when someone comes into your house and not only sees one book on medieval torture, but multiple books on medieval torture. Dan Carlin's the best. But yeah, we were talking about, the most fucked up way was the way the Persians used to do it. The ancient Persians. They used to put people on a canal. They used to cover them in honey, and they'd put another canal on top of them, so they would be immobilized. So there'd be two canals on top of each other, they're sandwiched in, so they can't move. And then they would let the earth eat them. So all the bugs and the maggots and all that stuff just eat them alive. So they die a very slow and horrifying death.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's what the honey was for, to attract them.
Yeah. It was to attract wild life animals, bugs and stuff like that. So they would just be eaten alive. That is really bad. Obviously, crucifixion's bad as well. But I think that's way worse because the crucifixion is at least you go to heaven afterwards. Body of Christ, oh. Arguably, you go to heaven that way directly, right? Isn't that the logic?
Pretty much a direct path.
All right, let me go. The letter's not done yet, so we got off topic. All right, where did I leave off?
I think you were talking about so we talked about him covering it up. So I think you're on the part where you talk about Mr. Brennan insisting Russia meddled in the 2016 election.
All right. So here we are. We are at. All right. So Mr. Brennan is now publicly insisting that Russia meddled in the 2016 election. What, however, was CIA Director Brennan saying when the alleged Russian meddling was taking place? Did he warn President Obama? Did he warn leaders of the Congress? According to press reports, Mr. Brennan did brief Democrat Senator Harry Reid on ties between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and Reid then wrote FBI Director James Comey demanding an investigation. However, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, has said he was not given the same briefing as Senator Reid, introducing the weight of a national intelligence into partisan politics, as Mr. Brennan appears to have done in his official capacity, is forbidden activity. So instead of going through the proper chain of command and going over to the Intelligence Committee with that information, he sent it right over to Harry Reid just to play party politics with it. So it just definitely seemed like he had political motivation.
Yeah, I mean, but eventually we did do, a proper investigation, and like 17 of the intelligence committees did say that Russia did hack, people's emails and, did set up trolling farms on the internet to try and sway, public opinion and change votes there. Obviously, they didn't hack into any election systems. And according to the now levied Mueller report, there was no direct or indirect collusion with the campaign in Russia, but they definitely did try and do some shit. And there's a lot of evidence of that. So.
You mean Russia?
Yeah. There's a lot of evidence for that right now.
Are you referring to the Facebook ads?
Yeah, I mean, people are conflating like the issue of Donald Trump directly colluding with Russia, or his campaign directly working with the Russians to get elected. They're conflating that with the broader issue of Russia doing things to meddle in our elections, which primarily the hacking of a lot of Democratic people. They also hacked. They hacked the DNC. They definitely hacked a bunch of people on the RNC as well, and they also set up obviously all those fake news machines on Facebook and a bunch of other places. The bots were all over Reddit. I remember seeing them. They were definitely doing things to change people's minds. Whether or not they were colluding with Donald Trump, was the question that was set up for this Mueller investigation. But the issue still stands, and there's 17 intelligence committees have openly said they definitely did things to try to affect our elections. That was the thing. Now, going back to Brennan here, I think there's definitely some political motivation going on there. Like, why was he talking to Harry Reid? Why didn't he just go to the Intelligence Committee? Or if he could have still talked to Harry Reid, but he should have also went to the Intelligence Committees. So that's a little definitely partisan there. But I just want to make that statement. Like, Russia definitely did shit to fuck with our elections. How effective it was is like up for debate, but it's not a question.
Well, whatever Russia did, I'm going to talk about a real country that actually tries to influence our election. And the U.S. tries to influence everyone's election as well.
Oh, yeah. We're the biggest. I mean, we're literally saying that we don't like the current president in Venezuela, and we support the other dude. So like we're like most open about it. Yeah, I get it.
This is a good segue. So President Trump has recognized the Golan Heights as Israel proper, as greater Israel.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
I mean, it's fucking stupid. I think it's just politically expedient. I think he's just trying to score some political points. He's got a really good rating from AIPAC right now. Like pretty much everything that a lot of the major topics that the Israeli lobby wanted to get through in our politics has basically been done by Trump already. Whether that's moving obviously recognizing Israel would be number one, and the always standing one, but moving the embassy and from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and then thus recognizing Jerusalem as the capital, that was a big one that they won. Pulling out of the Iran deal, that was a big one that the Israeli lobby wanted us to do. There's a bunch of other ones, but this one is also another big one, which is just recognizing the land that they seized and occupied in the '68 war, the Golan Heights. So that was a big one. So I see this as really stupid. I don't know.
I think Trump has gone. I think he's finally gone full neocon at this point.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that. So I was actually hanging out with Jose Nino.
Oh yeah.
He was on the show talking about Venezuela and gun control. He was in New York, and we were hanging out, and he was telling me that I need to write. So I said, like, all right, well, I was like, what am I going to write? So I was like brainstorming topics, and I came up with a topic. It was called The Transformation of Trump. You could steal this idea because I'm not going to finish it. If anyone's writing. The transformation of Trump is now complete, and I was writing an article on about how comparing Donald Trump to Anakin Skywalker and his transformation to Darth Vader. They like he's finally Trump is turning in full neocon at this point. He's leading by his mustache, meaning John Bolton.
Those early mustaches.
It's really interesting. It's not surprising, to be completely honest, but I think you see this. I think what Trump is doing right now, and maybe we should go into what the Golan Heights are before I give an analysis.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So, you know about the Golan Heights, about the military importance of it, but I'll just give a basic overview. It's basically the Golan Heights are a plateau overlooking the Jordan River Valley on the west. So the area was part of Western Syria until it came under Israeli occupation after the 6-Day War. And the Israeli portion of the Golan is the high ground, which makes it very, very important for military purposes.
Right.
After World War I, the Golan was a French mandate. So it was part of Syria. But in 1941, Syria declared independence. During the 6-Day War, after Israel whacked Egypt and Jordan, they invaded Golan, and they just kind of walked right in. Israel Air Force.
I think I said 68. That was 81 when they annexed the Golan Heights.
No, they invaded it during the 6-Day War. They annexed it in 81.
Okay, right.
But they kind of just walked right in because Israel was like a modern army with fucking F-15 shit, like tanks, and what was there F-15s back then or no? When was the F-15?
F-14s, Tomcats and shit like that.
Yeah, they were F-14s, and I mean obviously they were going to be able to walk right in. But yeah, I mean they occupied it and then they annexed it in 81, and Syria tried to get it back in the Yom Kippur War, but they failed. They captured some of it back.
That little chunk on the eastern side, right?
But not the important part.
Yeah, the tall mountainous part.
Not the part. And also, I'll add that the Golan Heights, I've never been there, but it's beautiful. If you look,
it's gorgeous.
It looks.
I was watching. Yeah, absolutely. Like Napa Valley, they have orchards, vineyards. Like it's dope. It looks really cool. I was watching this Vice thing on it in preparation for today, and they sent a bunch of people to Golan Heights, and like evidently there's been like during the Syrian civil war like a bunch of like tourists that go there because it's like obviously gorgeous. They have a lot of really great restaurants and like wines and shit like that, but also you could just sit on top of one of these giant hills with a pair of binoculars and literally watch like ISIS fight, Syrians. And like you can hear gunshots in the background. It's fucking weird and surreal, but the whole area is gorgeous and like super rich in natural resources and yeah, it's an awesome spot. I can see why Israel wants it, not only just militarily and like strategically, but also because it's an awesome stretch of land.
So, I mean, yeah, of course, everyone who's Israeli, I know they've been to Golan and they say it's absolutely beautiful. But I mean, the most important part of it, I think there's oil there too. There's energy resources there as well. But I don't really think that's that important. I think it's more of just the military advantage of having it rather than the energy resources because there's so much oil in this world. that's the reason why they want it. And Israel has the important part.
Right. The physical barrier part, right?
They have the physical barrier part. So they've been trying to, the world doesn't recognize Golan as Israeli. They recognize it as Syrian territory under Israeli occupation.
Mm-hmm.
And they've tried to negotiate it, but a deal never went through. I think the last deal was in 2008, I want to say. I think Turkey was trying to mediate the deal, but the Israeli prime minister died during the process and everything got set back.
Right.
A lot of the people there are Druze. I'll add.
Druze? Sorry?
Druze.
What are Druze?
It's an ethnic group.
No, I'm not familiar with the Druze.
It's an ethnic group in the Middle East. They're in Syria and Israel.
Hmm.
A lot of commanders in the Syrian army are actually Druze. But the U.S. is the only one who's recognizing this as Israeli territory.
Right. For funsies.
So the question is why? Why did Trump recognize it?
Political brownie points?
Well, yes, that's number one. I think it's because Trump has made the transition from being kind of like, well, he really made the transition from being a conspiracy nut birther guy to a populist right winger to now a mainstream conservative.
Yeah.
He made that transition. And you can see the writing on the wall, I think, when Trump was first elected, when Flynn was gone, when Bannon was gone. You can say whatever you want about them, but when those guys were taken out of the administration and they started getting guys like Bolton and Pompeo in there,
yeah,
the writing was already on the wall that they were just going to become like a mainstream conservative administration.
Even them out, you know?
Yeah. So now you kind of see this coalition forming behind Trump that's like very, very mainstream.
Right.
And they're they're mainstream, and they have a new enemy, the right wing today, the mainstream conservatives. Their enemy is socialism.
Oh, duh.
That's what they're because I was at CPAC. CPAC is the largest conservative conference in the country every year, and their main talking point at CPAC was like the danger of socialism. That's everything that every right winger can get behind, no matter what level of where you are in the right wing spectrum. Usually, you can get behind
brand. Right.
Yeah, whatever brand, whether you're like a neocon, mainstream conservative, libertarian, whatever you are. Right. That's how you get everyone together, the fight against socialism. So I think
fight against Bernie Sanders.
The Bernie Sanders is the voice. And they have like this new freshman congresswoman in AOC to put all that blame on to that represents the
I like her
outrageous millennial socialist. And you also have in South America, and this is why I think the Trump administration is so hawkish on them. They're hawkish. One of the reasons, there's a lot of reasons, but I think one of the reasons is because they want the opportunity to declare socialism as
the enemy of the people.
Exactly, as their one of their primary.
Like, oh, look at this country; they're all fucked up and they're socialist.
That
can't allow that to happen here. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what's going on in a nutshell with Donald Trump. Totally. Now, there's also another side to it as well. Netanyahu. There's an election coming up in Israel.
Oh, BB.
Oh, Iran.
Shouldn't he be in jail? Let's be real. Didn't he get caught?
Well, I mean, Netanyahu is complicit in stealing nuclear technology from the U.S., but you can listen to that episode on Benjamin Netanyahu if you want that information. But Netanyahu is one of the most shameless politicians in the entire world, to the point where I actually kind of respect him for it. Like he can just so effortlessly be a bigot and lie on camera where you're just to the point where you're like, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Good on you for being consistent.
Yeah, you just kind of like look at him, you're just like, well, good for you. You're just
sticking to your guns.
Palestinians are
Evil people.
Terrorist. The best is when Netanyahu said that he said that Hitler didn't want to burn the Jews. It was the Palestinians who wanted to do it.
Hitler didn't want to exterminate the Jews at the time. He wanted to expel the Jews. And Haj Amin al-Husseini went to Hitler and said, if you expel them, they'll all come here. So what should I do with them? He asked. You said, burn them. And he was
God. It was the Palestinians convinced him.
That makes me cringe. It's
oh my God, I'll play it.
Oh God.
I'll play it.
Please do.
He's gross. He's such a cringe.
What are you talking about? Like,
it was the Palestinians who did it. I mean, the guy is, I guess you got to give your disclaimer nowadays. We are in no way anti-Semitic in any way or anything like that.
Of course not.
No, we all have no problem with Jewish people. Some of the biggest critics of Netanyahu are of course Jewish.
That's right.
You have to give that disclaimer all the time, right? Unfortunately, but that's the world we live in, where people can't separate the difference between Zionism and Judaism. However,
right.
Netanyahu's a white Jewish supremacist. Like there's enough video evidence to come to that conclusion for any rational mind.
He'd be proud to call himself that.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah,
I don't think he would deny it if you levied that claim against him.
So then you has an election coming up. He has corruption scandals at the wazoo. Like the real ones that he has right now are the ones he has to do with media, with bribery and fraud. Netanyahu, what he did was that he traded favors to this news website called Walla in exchange for publishing. Yeah, Walla, in exchange for publishing pro Netanyahu articles, and they were also removing the ones that were critical of him. He also was accused of influencing their senior editors and reporters, so their staff. He was Walla was owned by Bezek, B-E-Z-E-C. Bezek.
Who knows?
The biggest telecommunications company in Israel. In another charge, he's accused of leading Israeli newspaper Yadad Arnahat. I'm just butchering these names, by curtailing a rival paper. So he was just playing. He was just playing a lot of political games. A lot of political games with different media companies out there. Like he was granting them political favors, like curtailing rivals and things like that, in exchange for good press coverage. So that's that in a nutshell. Ted Snyder, who's on the show, wrote an excellent article on this. If you want to get like the really, really specific details and spell out those Hebrew names in your head. So Benjamin Netanyahu also had this connection with Arnon Milchan. He's an Israeli billionaire / Hollywood huge Hollywood producer, and he was a middleman in a lot of these different conspiracies or a lot of these backdoor deals. In an exchange, Netanyahu helped Milchan with like tax breaks, and he helped them get a visa to the U.S. And in exchange for that, Netanyahu accepted more than $280,000 worth of champagne and cigars.
That's crazy.
So he's a big cigar guy, and his wife loves champagne.
Yeah, his wife got a bunch of other shit too.
Yeah, I said furs in another podcast. I meant champagne. I remember saying furs. Maybe there were furs. But yeah, he's been indicted on these charges.
Not even like just accusations.
They're not accusations. They caught him, and I believe he might. So before Trump announced
The Golan Heights thing.
Before he announced that the U.S. was going to recognize Golan as Israeli, as part of Israel, Netanyahu, his poll numbers, I believe, were behind. The Likud party wasn't doing that well behind Benny Gantz. And now, last time I checked, I should have checked this before we started this, but I think Netanyahu's poll numbers are up. And
No doubt.
if you look at it, Netanyahu is really, really close with the Kushners. So, like, really, really, really close with the Kushners, to the point where they have a very close personal friendship. It's so weird how Kushner has these close personal friendships with all of our allies in the Middle East. I mean, that's why he's
him and MBS, him and
MBS. Well, Netanyahu apparently would sleep in Kushner's bed whenever he was visiting New York.
That's creepy.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Jared Kushner, so we're not talking about going on top of a bunk bed. Uncle BB's here. Jared, Uncle BB's here.
That's how I imagine it.
Jared, I want to sleep in the room and make sure Iran does not come in and grab you, kill you, because the Palestinians are out there.
Yeah, that's how I envisioned it too when I first heard about it. I'm like, what? I imagined.
I call top bunk.
No, what I imagined was BB sleeping in like a Ferrari bed,
like cuddling with Kushner, spooning.
Uncle BB.
Hey everyone, it's BB. It's Uncle BB.
I saw this really funny campaign ad from 2015 for Netanyahu, and he's a BB. This couple's going out to dinner or wherever on a date, and it's like, did you call the babysitter? And he's like, the husband's like, oh no, I forgot. And then knocking on the door, this Netanyahu, and he's like,
oh god,
he's like, did you call a babysitter? I swear to God.
Please find that and put it on the show right
now.
now.
Babysitter? Well, it's in Hebrew, so it's.
So what?
So people aren't gonna get it. So people aren't gonna be able to translate.
Things called subtitles, you know.
Yeah, all right, but on the podcast, on the iTunes, what people actually listen to.
I'm sure we got some people that can speak Hebrew. If you speak Hebrew, let us know.
But yeah, so they're close friends. Obviously, it was just a sign of like helping his buddy out with this upcoming election when he has all these charges against him. I mean, that's what I think. And there's also a lot of strategic. There's more. There's always more than one thing. You know what I mean? Like, right. You know, we always make claims, and we're both guilty of this. Like, you know, it's because of this or that or that. It's always a combination of like 100 things. Yeah. But like that is a big part of it. The friendship between there's a very close connection between you know, Israeli partisans and Kushner. There's also the fact that Syria effectively has won the Syrian war.
Mm-hmm. They want to put some distance.
They're probably going to, within the next 6 months to a year, they're going to take Idlib back. There's going to be a battle. A battle-tested army on the other side of the Golan Heights that hates Israel.
Right, and they want a buffer zone with a nice mountain to make it really hard for them to march their soldiers across, yeah.
If there's Syrian nationalists, and I've heard people talk about, you know, once Syria takes back Idlib, they're going to go march on the Golan Heights. In reality, that's not going to happen. Let's just be honest.
Like, for real, like, you don't fuck with Israel. Like, you could be battle hardened, but Israel still has Israel will outgun you. They have
There's one side that has F-15s and 16s and F-35s and the backing of the United States military. It's just doesn't. It doesn't. You can win a war. You can win a war against a bunch of jihadist terrorists, but like, you're not going to beat the full might of like the United States military behind Israel. So like,
I think Israel can take them by themselves. They
probably could with their air force, and like that, they definitely could. But now, so let's just say if they ever did march on the Golan, now instead of like the rest of the world recognizes Golan as Israel. I mean, as Syria, excuse me. Now, if they ever invade Golan, then they're invading Israel proper, which would spark the United States to go to war with Syria. So that just takes it off.
Israel's NATO too, right? So like,
it would completely take it off the table. It would just completely take that off the table. You can't, and I mean, I never thought that would happen regardless. I don't think there would ever be an invasion from like Arab states into Israel at this point. But I think that's why I think that's like the major reason. And like, I don't know why I don't know if people are surprised. Like I wasn't surprised. Like, I don't know. Were you surprised to hear this?
No, but I also thought it was just like, really? Did you need to do that? You know, like of all the things that you can be doing with your presidential time, that's the one thing that you chose to do. It's so like inconsequential. And like, I feel like this is how I feel about Saudi Arabia. Is like, what are we getting out of this? You know, not that everything has to be a quid pro quo, but like truthfully, like, what do we get? What do we get out of recognizing the Golan Heights as being Israel's? What benefit does that give to the United States, to the people? United States.
The funny thing is, though, is that question is being asked more and more nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw this poll that asked Americans, are they more sympathetic with the Palestinian? Like if you look at the poll numbers from around the world, they asked this question. I think it's a Gallup poll where they ask, who are you more sympathetic towards in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Mm-hmm.
Israel or Palestine? And every country in the world says Palestine except for the U.S. For the first time ever, the U.S. tested Palestine instead of Israel. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's like 70% of Republicans are sympathetic towards Israel. Democrats are like split. Both of those numbers dropped. Both parties are more sympathetic towards Palestine. I think Democrats are more sympathetic. Like overall, Democrats are more sympathetic towards Palestine. Republicans are still super high, but like the fact that there was a movement, it kind of shows you. And like now, there's like all these conversations coming out about the influence of AIPAC. There was that big documentary that was that was leaked by Al Jazeera. It wasn't released. They had to leak it because AIPAC
shut it down.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? The documentary was about the influence of AIPAC, and AIPAC tried to shut it down.
How ironic, right?
How ironic. Yeah. So there's like a different perspective. There's people who are questioning that relationship now, and I find it kind of fascinating, and I find it really especially on the right side. I don't really expect that much movement. I think for the most part, Republicans are going to stay pretty pro-Israel over the next 2 years, at least until the next election. But what's really interesting is that you're seeing this split on the left, on the Democrats, and what I really think it is, I think it's the DNC, the establishment.
Yeah. The establishment doesn't want to lose the votes of those of the massive influence that AIPAC has, right? So like it's kind of like a political checklist. You have to be like, get your AIPAC star of approval, otherwise you're not going to go very far in this country. So,
well, yeah, of course but what I find most interesting though is that the actual voters. Mm-hmm. Are changing course, especially on the left.
But not the establishment.
No, not Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer was just at AIPAC, and he was talking about the latest thing going on in Gaza. You've read the news that there was a rocket fired. It killed civilians, and
fucked up.
I believe 2-3 civilians died. Israeli civilians died, and
no, nobody died. It was seven people got injured. Nobody died.
Oh, no one died. Okay, sorry.
But two of the 7 people were children, so it's like it was fucked up. They were wounded, but like no one died. thankfully. But it's still fucked up, dude. What? Like,
it's evil to kill civilians in any capacity.
yeah, like seriously, Hamas, cut the shit out.
But it wasn't. But apparently, it wasn't Hamas. It was just somebody else. Hamas is denying culpability. At least Hamas is denying culpability.
So who is it supposed to be?
I don't know. I mean, it could be a lot of people. There's a lot of people who aren't friendly to Israel and Gaza, as you can imagine.
Could it have been a false flag to try and get Bibi some extra Warhawk points ahead of his election?
Dude, the population in Gaza is they're stuck in a open air prison, in a concentration camp, really. Like, it could be anyone. Like, it could be any
but not anyone
person.
has. I mean, like the rocket technology that Hamas and people in Gaza have isn't exactly great, but that's not stuff that you just can whip together on your own. You know, like you have to have access to shit like that. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't. Hamas has said, I don't know what happened. Obviously, I know nothing, Jon Snow, but like. Hamas has said that they're trying, like they will cooperate with Israel in finding the people who did it to avoid bloodshed and to avoid the retaliation.
To avoid airstrikes, yeah, because
to avoid getting entire blocks leveled, you know?
Right.
So, I don't know. It's just, I find that this can't last much longer. Like, I feel like this kind of relationship that we have with Israel is getting closer to its expiration date. And it's because the voting base has access to a lot of the fucked up shit that goes on. And so that's my assessment.
I mean, realistically, if I were AIPAC, or if I were like, you know, Israel and the Israel lobby, I'd be trying to reformulate my game plan with the American people too. You know, like if we know and the goalposts are moving on U.S. sympathies towards, you know, Israel, I'd be massively changing my PR strategy. You know. Like just getting Trump to recognize the Golan Heights, like that's pretty big, but like at the same time, like you said, it's a matter of time.
we got to be careful with this, because I think a lot of the critics, and obviously it's what Danny Jerison said. It was third rail politics, right?
Right. You can't talk about it.
Obviously, you need to speak about it. Like if you don't speak, I think in situations like this, when you don't talk about something, then it creates just a lot more resentment. And then people just go to their echo chambers, and then they start to form like all these crazy, really actual bigot ideas, whether that's, you know, anti-Semitism or anti-Muslim or whatever. I guess anti-Muslim is technically anti-Semitic, anti-Arab. But I think you need to acknowledge, and I think a lot of people who are just like really, really hardcore anti-Zionist, I think where they make their mistakes is when they can collectively condemn everyone from Israel for this.
Mm-hmm.
You can't collectively condemn an entire group of people.
No,
you know, like what?
That's how we get into this mess in the first place.
Because it just creates a cycle of violence.
Right.
You can criticize the government.
Absolutely.
But because like I read Haaretz a lot, because Haaretz is a good paper.
It pops up on my Google newsfeed all the time.
I enjoy reading Haaretz, especially in stuff regarding the Middle East, obviously. Mm-hmm. And they're not like, I get a different vibe that there's a pretty strong resistance to Netanyahu. So, like, not all Israelis are crazy Jewish supremacists. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
So you can't collectively condemn everyone and be like, oh, right. Israel, oh! Because then you start sounding like just a social justice warrior type character who blames everything.
Frankly, you just
on
start
one
sounding like a
people.
bigot, you know?
And a
So,
bigot too, but like I think they're two sides of the same coin. You know, those radical socialist justice warriors and those identitarian whites, or whatever you want to call it. You know, one's people who spew out racism, because in reality it's the same thing. Like, you know, whether you're black and you hate whites, and you're whites and you hate blacks, or vice versa, or you know, whatever bigotry that you spew. Identity politics is always the problem, and when you subscribe to it, it always creates a cycle of violence. Because when you collectively condemn somebody, it forces the other group to band together to collectively blame you. So you got to be careful for that. So don't go. I think it's important to draw the distinctions between things like Zionism and Judaism, you know, because they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
Some of the most staunch critics of Israel are Jewish.
That's right. I was in Penn Station not too long ago, taking a train into New Jersey, and there was like a little demonstration by some anti-Zionists, and I was very surprised. Well, not very surprised, but I was pretty surprised to see a bunch of Hasidic Jewish people there, you know, protesting against Zionism, and I looked into it, and I was like, oh, didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, Jews Against Zionism. They're based out of New York. They're one of the biggest critics of Zionism in the world.
Yeah.
They're one of the most staunch critics of Zionism. So it just don't collectively condemn Jewish people. That's what I'm trying to say. It's really dumb. You sound like an idiot, and you sound like a whiny social justice warrior. You can condemn neocons. I hate neocons. But people,
neocons isn't like a race or religion. It's just a group of people who decide to have.
The problem is that people. The problem is that most neocons happen to be Jewish.
Yeah,
like Bill Kristol, Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz, Max Boot, like most neocons. But like you can't collectively condemn them. Albert Einstein was they asked him to be president of Israel. You know that?
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
He declined.
Why?
He's knew
too smart for that shit.
He was like, I don't want to get involved in this. I don't think this is a good idea.
I do not want to be the president of Israel.
Yeah, they said that. They
E equals MC squared.
But yeah, it was just politically expedient for all parties involved to make that, to recognize it, which is, I think, is pretty obvious. But I just wasn't condemned. I wasn't surprised about this announcement. I'm honestly I was about to say I'm not surprised it was made. I'm only surprised that it wasn't made sooner. But it makes perfect sense right now, like right after the AIPAC meeting.
Yeah, and also right after the Mueller report drops, it's like, cool, let's both score some points,
Everyone's scoring points, but like I don't know how many points Trump is winning. Like I guess he is.
Yeah, dude, with the voter base for sure. Like he's he's not completely clear on this Mueller shit yet, but he's definitely winning for sure. And he follows that right up with a big, bone throwing to the, the Israeli lobby here in the United States, which is de facto, as we've spoken about, like they have a lot of influence in our country. Yeah, no, he's doing well. He's doing well for himself.
Trump,
politically speaking,
Trump has finally gotten his Republican card. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. He got his R card. Yeah, I just picture him coming out and like the Star Wars music playing, do do do, Darth Trump, China.
Yeah, I think he made it. I think he transformed. They got him. The swamp is swamp water now. He did everything that, not everything that George Bush would do, with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But at
Not
this
far
point,
from
it makes perfect political sense for him to do it. You're absolutely right. Like I think it is probably a good political move for him as far as the upcoming election is concerned. Because he'll be able to. He just captured so much of his base. Like he captured all the parts of the right, and that's all they really need. I think the Republicans think like that's all we really need to do right now is just
Right.
capture, just make sure that the right isn't divided at all.
Right.
Because the left is usually it's the opposite way. Usually Democrats are the ones that are kind of
Trying to keep it together. Yeah.
are pretty solidified under, these party leaders like Obama, or Clinton, but they don't have. Obama's gone. They don't really have any leadership anymore. They don't have any leadership. Like their leadership is Nancy
Bernie Sanders. They got Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, but Bernie, whatever your opinions are on Bernie Sanders, I'm not going to go into that. But Bernie Sanders doesn't represent every Democrat. You know what I mean?
He doesn't.
He represents the progressive wing of the DNC. I mean, he's not a Democrat.
Yeah, he's an independent.
So
who happens to with the Democrats.
Yeah. So there's no Democrat. The Democrats are split in 4 different ways right now.
Yeah.
You have your corporate Democrats, kind of just mainstream liberals that you'd probably find in New York City and stuff like that, or California. It's like the corporatist Democrats who just generically kind of swing left. You have your hardcore progressives like Jimmy Dore, like Glenn Greenwald, like that wing, who are looking at Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders. And then you have
socialists.
Well, no, that's what I would say. The hardcore progressives are the socialists.
Oh, no, really?
They subscribe to a lot of that socialist economic stuff. But they're also very, very anti-war. Like they're truly anti-war. So they don't buy up. Like some of the biggest critics of the Mueller investigation and Russiagate were people on the progressive left because they hated seeing the collusion between the media and the intelligence community. Like Jimmy Dore is a hardcore progressive. Do you watch Jimmy Dore at all?
No, I don't.
Jimmy Dore is really good. I really enjoy Jimmy Dore's work. He's really funny. You should listen to his stuff on his Joe Rogan podcast when he was on Joe Rogan, or just his stuff in general. But he's great. He was one of the biggest critics of Hillary Clinton, huge critic of Obama, and even a critic of Bernie Sanders when he I guess does something that he doesn't like. So he's very consistent with his ideology. He's not partisan. That wing, I feel, has grown, that progressive left. It's bigger than it was ever before.
Yeah, for sure. It's not scary anymore to say, things that are outwardly socialist.
So I think you're going to see that division, but then there's another part of the Democrats. You have your social justice warriors, your weirdo social justice warriors who are just super into identitarian philosophy, like just the hate crime people and black oppression and all that stuff. And you have those people too. I don't think they're that. I think they're an overstated part of that base. I think that hardcore
that's honestly you lost me there a little bit, because that wing that you're trying to describe, I don't think is a cohesive wing, because there are a lot of people mixed into the different elements of the Democratic Party.
That's fair enough. I would agree. That's a good point.
But it's good that you brought it up, because I think that those are certain tropes, right? That they're common threads among different Democrats. So maybe they end up just unifying around that.
That's not going to be winning. That's not going to be a winning way. That's not going to win you an election this year or in 2020. So you have that. I guess it's a trope. And then you have your crazy Antifa people, but I wouldn't consider them Democrats. They're more just far left people. I would, the Antifa type people, the hardcore aggressive communist anarchist, whatever that means. If that's
Anarcho-capitalists.
No, that's not. An anarcho-capitalist makes sense. An anarcho-communist doesn't make sense. Like logically, an anarcho-capitalist makes sense. An anarcho-communist does not make sense whatsoever. How can you? But all right, that's besides the point. That part of the left, I think, is pretty small. I think they're equivalent to like our alt-right, like our like bigot right. Maybe they're big. I don't know who's actually bigger. There needs to be a study.
They don't necessarily walk around carrying cards, so it's a little hard to tag them.
No, you can actually find their card because they're typically homeless, sleeping at Penn Station. And
hey,
no, they don't have their wallet on them, so their card's not with them. But
we should do a poll on that. We just go up to all the homeless people in Penn Station and ask them what their political.
Were you at Occupy Wall Street?
No. Oh, that's the question that you asked. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Were you
at Occupy Wall Street?
Have you ever made a political sign? What was the contents of that sign?
War for oil! War for oil! War for oil! That's it. Doing this. War for oil. War. That was the left anti-war movement. War for oil. We're here. We're queer. War for oil. That was no wonder I wasn't convinced in 2003. It took me 10 years to
come around to our side.
I don't know. I came around like 2000. I came around while I was in college, at the end of around college time. But yeah, well, I used to think they were just like people who were anti-war were just pussies. It's like that was my mentality for a really long time. Just like, oh, it's pussies.
And then you got woke.
It was that simplistic. It was just like pussies. That's how the standard. I say all this stuff like I'm giving my insight as somebody who used to be like just a typical kind of mainstream Republican. Like that's what I used to think. So I imagine that's how people still do think. Pussies. I'm sure. When they see people protesting at Occupy Wall Street, all right, I used to work right next to Occupy Wall Street, and I used to just be like in my head every single time, get a job. Like just get a job be the first thing that popped me. Like get a fucking job, you fucking liberal pussy. But all right, we're at an hour and a half right now.
Yep.
How are we supposed to end this?
Well, let's just leave it here. I know we had another topic, but we can cover that as a.
What was the other topic? Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. We can address it real quick. All right. So I want to thank everyone who's been reviewing the podcast on iTunes. It's very cool. It helps our rankings. It's actually helped us a lot with all the reviews. So keep on doing that. I saw that there was a question in one of the reviews, which is very cool. I guess we haven't really found out the most effective way to communicate with our audience. We're gonna have to set up a Facebook group or now we're talking about using minds.com, minds.com, Minds. But we still have our Facebook. I hate Facebook so much. Like, I really hate them. So I really kind of want to like take people who are listening. I kind of want to.
Yeah, if all 15,000 of you guys can just come over to like, YouTube or like Minds or anywhere else, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, minds.com. But like a message board, like where you can ask questions and stuff and like get feedback on the show and, let us know if we're doing a good job or if we should change topics or we should concentrate on one topic so we can just get a feel for what people want to hear.
Yeah, I'm all over Reddit too. So if you guys like Reddit, let us know.
Reddit as well. Reddit would be a good idea. I've never God, I've never been on Reddit in my life.
Reddit's good just for communication, I think. It's like you can set up forums and topics and like, threads and shit like that would work really well. So if y'all like Reddit, let us know.
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, Reddit's cool. Let me bring up the review. I mean the question. I am kind of a boomer when it comes to technology. Where's my phone? Bro House podcast. No, Bro History podcast. If I can't find my own show on iTunes, then how do I expect other people to find
something
it, right?
wrong? Yeah.
I'm gonna fuck. All right, cool. All right. So we got a question about. We touch on the Nazarbayev resignation. Am I saying that name right? The president of Kakistan.
Let's get it. Kazakhstan, and it's Nazarbayev.
Kazakhstan.
Nazarbayev.
Curious to hear your thoughts on its implications and reasons for happening. Nazarbayev. All right. So yeah, he was president for 30 years or so. He was the only president Kazakhstan's ever had.
Since post-Soviet era, yeah.
And he just kind of left out of the blue. I honestly don't really know that much about him or Kazakhstan. I just know that he's been president for 30 years, and he's I guess I guess you get the title dictator when you're president for 30 years. What I do know about it is that he was super old.
78.
He was 78, and I'm sure that he still has like a position of power. I think he's going to be like the head of the whatever political party he has. He's like political parties matter. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's still going to have like the leading seat in his political party, and he's going to be head of like the Security Council there. So he's still going to have like he's still going to be like somebody with very high influence.
He'll be around.
I just think he's probably old, and he probably had this conversation where he was like, I'm getting old. I can't do this forever.
So he tossed it up to his...
you need to be a man. You need to step up and rule Kazakhstan. That's very nice. Or Borat voice.
It's very nice.
He
tossed it up to... he tossed it up to the former chairman of the Senate in Kazakhstan, Kasim Yomart Tokayev.
Okay. They're going to have elections, though, I think, over 2 years, 2020. Is there elections?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kazakhstan's actually pretty interesting. We should probably talk about it more.
It's actually really dope. So I was reading about it before today, just to get prepared for this. And honestly, like their capital city, and I want to talk about the capital, Astana, is actually really fucking dope. Like, don't let Borat fool you. Like, Kazakhstan's on their shit. Like, it's a hyper modern city with cool ass skyscrapers. And there's this one, like park, like national park. And I saw this picture on Reddit a minute ago. Henry, I'll send it to you to put on the show here. But it's literally like this gorgeous, like Central Park looking thing. And in the middle of it is this big ass hawk, like a pool that's like in the shape of a hawk. And it's absolutely gorgeous. Like this thing is crazy. Their economic, like their economics in Kazakhstan has been increasing. Like I think I remember seeing an ad for tourism to Kazakhstan and thinking like, what? Kazakhstan? Like that's not I've never thought that Kazakhstan would be a place that I would want to go to, but honestly, it's pretty beautiful there. And funny that I brought up Astana, the capital. They are changing the name of Astana to Nur Sultan, which is the first name of Nazarbayev. They're literally renaming the capital in his honor. Just like overnight. They were like, yeah, we're changing it. It's now Nur Sultan. It's not Astana anymore.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're just changing.
I've read stuff that the economy is slowing down there. So I don't. That could be a reason why, because he wants to just step down. And if the economy tanks, he can blame it on the other guy, so his legacy isn't ruined. But
well, if we're looking at it like from other post-Soviet states, like their GDP growth, poverty rates, quality of life is much.
Do you know why though? Because they didn't have communism there afterwards.
Mhm.
A lot of the other Soviet states had communism afterwards, and they changed it.
I mean, I was reading this one article, and it was like they are like economy first, democracy later, right? So they focus a lot on their economy, and I think I was reading something like their GDP or something like that grew more than 20x, since 91, which is ridiculous, and then their per capita income has raised and things like that. But you're right. I mean, it's like they're tied to oil too, so in the early part of this decade, when oil prices started dropping, so did their economy. But I think largely speaking, they're doing pretty well for themselves. But we can't live forever on oil,
Well,
So.
I think what's interesting about Kazakhstan is that, and this is why we should probably talk about it more in the future. They're so big. It's such a huge landmass.
Yeah, it's giant. Yeah.
And there's when you think about it, like it connects, it's such a big piece of land that connects, in Central Asia, it connects Eastern Asia
Right.
with Europe and so
China,
forth.
the rest of
There's
the
such a
stand,
place. There's so much land to put things like pipelines and roads and things like that. So
right.
I don't know what the exact geopolitical implications will be, or the exact reasons why, but you definitely raised a really interesting question, and something that we should definitely probably keep track of. So thank you for the Joe Dirt reference as well. Keep on keeping on. What's the other quote? Life's a garden, dig it. I hope I got that right. Life's a garden, man, dig it. But yes, I guess I don't really mind if you guys want to contact us by leaving reviews with questions. That could be kind of a hack for us to get more reviews, right, Danny?
Maybe.
But we're not going to obviously read them if they're not 5 stars. So
yeah, we throw those out.
Yeah, we try to APAC them or something like that. You know what I mean?
To suppress the shit. Yeah.
But if you guys want to ask questions or have us do a topic, write a review with a little question with a 5-star. And yeah, we'll figure out a way to contact you guys to do a more effective forum type thing. I guess. Fuck. All right, we'll have a meeting, Danny. We'll have a meeting after this.